Hey there, Michael. How you doing today?
Ryan, I'm doing good, brother. How's everything going? I'm sorry I missed a little call a few minutes ago.
Hey, no problem. Super excited to get you on the chat today. So thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
So we're really excited to talk to you about for sale by owner stuff. A little bit of background for you about me and how I kind of got into this whole scene. So I've been running a blog, real estate related blog, for a couple of years, and for probably about the last 12 months, I've been putting out a lot of content about for sale by owner stuff and have noticed a tremendous amount of interest from people around that. I think because there's a lot of need for people to kind of be educated more about the process if they're trying to undertake, selling their own house.
hmm
So there's been a lot of people emailing in and asking questions, and I figured why not reach out to as many experts as I could, starting with Florida and then going to other states, about what people need to look out for when they get into the process,
hmm
and generally the different moving parts of a transaction and exactly who does what in the transaction. I think there's a lot of confusion about that as well. People aren't quite sure what like a title company does or what responsibilities they're going to have now that they don't have representation, all that good stuff. So I wanted to sort of reach out to as many people as I could and kind of aggregate a general consensus of what people should really look out for and why they need to be, in my opinion, contacting experts like you early and often in the process and really educating themselves before they try to get involved in actually doing this.
hmm
So I guess just to kick things off, maybe just a little bit about you, a little background, and what made you want to kind of get involved in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into the business. My mother was in real estate, so my entire time growing up, I've been around real estate, from her managing different properties to helping friends and family transfer houses, move to different states and so on and so forth. Um, I picked up on title about 7 years ago when the market crashed. I had a friend's family that owned a local title company, and I got on board with them. I was a mortgage broker at the time, and I had seen kind of the crash coming. I knew there wasn't going to be the large commissions that there were. So I went and I wanted to kind of separate myself and diversify with an additional stream of income. So I went into the title side. I really wanted to be an investor, but it was kind of I could kill two birds with one stone and sell the title insurance alongside of learning how to invest in real estate myself. Um,
Good
you know,
timing on that.
Fast forward, 7 years, I now have my own title company with two partners here in Florida called Title Now. I'm still investing in properties, and it's really just come full circle. I really enjoy the person-to-person aspect of the sales. Title insurance is really the same, and I think it's a customer service that really diversifies people's relationship when it comes to title companies, real estate attorneys, and things like that, because the policy is the same everywhere that you go. It's just a service that you get provided, and where you are in the totem pole as far as the customer, how they service your account. So that's really what I tend to focus on.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the customer service element of I think that's probably key in everyone's role, just about, especially for the agent side of things. I think that's probably, and when people kind of go their own route, I think that's probably one of the things that they're probably going to need more than anything because there's some slack definitely that has to be picked up, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Um, so tell me a little bit about your experience with for sale by owner people, and what are some of the issues and challenges that you see kind of with those transactions?
I mean, there's quite a few pitfalls. Whenever you jump into kind of a world that you are unfamiliar with, in this case, it's marketing real estate related contracts and things like that. There's definitely some pitfalls that, homeowners need to be aware of. One is when you're hiring an agent, that person has years of experience as far as how to get your property out into the right eyes, how to negotiate the contracts, what your property is really worth as far as comps. There's a whole ton of pitfalls that a homeowner can make as far as doing things incorrectly along the process. A lot of homeowners think that the market's hot, they drop their property on the market, and the offers are going to flow in. There's tons of flat fee listing people that can get the properties on the MLS for you. So it's possible in today's day and age to use the internet to get the eyeballs that even realtors in most cases would get. It's everything basically past that point as far as what to list the property at to make sure that you're competitive in the market. It is how to stage and show the property. So people obviously like that and want to put in an offer on the property. There is the types of contracts to use. I see a lot of investors out there using one-page contracts that lean heavily towards the investor. It puts the homeowner at a significant disadvantage once they sign these contracts. And homeowners don't really know. They don't know what a FAR bar as is contract is. They see real estate contract. Oh, it's the price that I want. Oh, they are putting a deposit down. And that's really all that they care about. But when the transaction doesn't go smooth, it's all the additional terms in the contract that really help separate what's going on with that transaction. And that's really where homeowners get caught up, and you can find yourself in legal limbo with an unscrupulous investor kind of holding the leverage on you of not being able to get out of the contract. I've seen it over and over again. Obviously, when you are doing it for sale by owner, the buyer wants to take it to their own title company, their own attorney. You're kind of shut out of the process. By not having a realtor kind of oversee the transaction for you, you don't know if things are moving at the proper speed that they're supposed to be. You don't know if the title work that they run is really all the title work. You don't know if they're delaying and things like that. Whereas if you had somebody that was familiar with the life cycle of a real estate transaction and the different steps, that would be able to step in and notice that there's something funny going on.
Okay, that's interesting. So I think you're probably the first person to bring up maybe the fact that maybe I guess a significant part of the potential buyers for a for sale by owner listing might actually be investors, not just a normal what you would think to be a buyer, a general buyer. So you actually see a lot of investors that come in and try to buy those type of listings.
Absolutely. For sale by owners, I think, unfortunately so, are a target of not only investors. Realtors obviously chase them to get listings. Investors chase them because they're just uneducated as a general statement in the market. When you leave your 9-to-5 job and you come home, you show your house to somebody and sign a contract without actually having any market experience, there's always, increasing the chance that something can go wrong with your transaction. But I think investors more so are trolling these uneducated people and are, putting documents in front of them that these people don't necessarily understand the ramifications of it. As far as listings and realtors, I think the same thing kind of happens with them. But I think it's more, obviously it's regulated by the board of realtors. So there's only a certain kind of extent that these people can find themselves in a pitfall. Worst case scenario, your property ends up getting listed for 6 months or a year and you don't get the price that you want and you still have your house. You don't owe this any commission. But if you sign the wrong paperwork with an investor, you can really find yourself, being held over the fire.
That's interesting too. So I guess so real estate agents have a certain standard that they have to abide by.
Absolutely.
But a real estate investor may not have those same ethical standards. They obviously have some legal. I'm sure there's some legal things, but maybe not as high of a bar. So I guess that's maybe a tip for people. If I guess they can always ask, hey, are you an investor, or maybe how do you figure that? How does a seller figure that out? Like who's this person in front of them?
Well, it's really the conversation that they have. And, this is one of the big reasons why people have realtors, to be able to kind of separate the nonsense and see the people's motives behind what's going on and see exactly who they are, obviously auditing the buyer to make sure that they are qualified, that they do have the funds, that they have the wherewithal to close on the transaction. But the realtors are held to a much higher standard. Here in Florida, they have FREC. which oversees the Florida realtors. It's very easy to file a complaint against them, realtors, and they take it very seriously with the Board of Realtors. As far as investors go, if a realtor is an investor, they are supposed to disclose that to the seller. But if the buyer is not a realtor, there really isn't a threshold that they are held to ethically. Obviously, if they cross the legal line, that's a criminal matter. But anything below that is really, he said, she said. You can find yourself in civil court with anybody, but the reality of being able to prove anything, I mean, they have the document signed. It's like if you sign the contract, you sign the contract. There's not really much to go back and say, start making complaints. Oh, he lied to me. You don't really have any proof. But with a realtor, they take those claims much more seriously. So even the threat of, a lawsuit or filing a complaint, they can look at the realtor as taking advantage of somebody, whereas if you're an investor and somebody says you took advantage of them, it's basically your fault that you got taken advantage of.
Right. Okay. That makes sense to me. Is there any, based on what you've seen, what do you think separates the success stories for sale owners versus the, I would say, horror stories? Like, what can people do to sort of to get themselves in the success camp?
I mean, it's really all about education. A lot of people, they look to for sale by owner. They want to save a couple $1,000s in realtor commissions. Obviously, when you have a property of any substantial size, you look at the price tag of 6% on there, and it turns into multiple tens of thousands of dollars. So the allure of selling your property by yourself is very large. Mm-hmm. I think that, as with anything, you can do anything by yourself if you are educated. You can cook, you can mountain climb. You have to really spend the time, immerse yourself in the subject matter, do the proper research, and you have to find out what your property is really worth. You should definitely talk with other agents in the area. Every realtor out there wants your listing. If you ask them for what they think that your house is worth, can you send me a CMA? They will be glad to. You're going to get a little sales pitch with it because they're obviously interested in listing the property, but they're a very valuable resource. And I would definitely reach out to some of the more educated realtors in the market that work the particular neighborhood of the house being sold to find out what it's worth. Do they know anybody that's buying in there? How would they stage it? I mean, these are all questions that you can ask a realtor when they come by to check it out. They're there for a sales call. They want the listing, right, but they're willing to provide all this information because it is a tough job getting a house sold. A lot of people go for sale by owner. It doesn't work out, and then they end up listing. So it's not unheard of for you to tell a realtor, I want all this information, and yeah, I'll take the magnet, I'll keep it on the fridge, and if something changes, I'll let you know. The realtor wants that. If you can get it sold on your own for a good price, all power to you. But they're willing to kind of be the backdrop if it doesn't work out the way that you want. I mean, it's a numbers game to them. They provide 100 CMAs. They get 5 deals. It works out for them.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, it's a marketing tool for them, and for the seller, it's very helpful information.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Do you know of anything in particular that was I've been asking some people, like, nightmare stories. Was there anything that you saw that came across your desk that was just an absolute unmitigated disaster?
I mean, I get a lot of investor closings. I focus on investor closings here in the South Florida market. It is rampant out here that investors will have homeowners sign real estate contracts, one-page contracts that heavily favor the investor. If the investor doesn't like the numbers, they can't flip the property, they record a copy of the contract in the public records. What that does is that clouds the homeowner's title, and the investor disappears, and the homeowner continues on trying to find a buyer. They find a buyer, they go to closing, and they realize they have a cloud on their title. At that point, the title company has to call the investor. They need a release of that because it does cloud. So it's basically a lien on the property. You have to basically call that investor that walked away from your deal and go, I need you to release this. I have another contract. Whenever an investor hears you have another contract, they know that you need them to release. And I've seen investors walk away with $15,000, $20,000 solely for releasing their previous contract that they didn't close on, because there is no other option. The other side of that is the only way to get that cloud of title off is by going out and suing the investor. So it's a problem that a lot of homeowners, especially here in South Florida, since flipping is so hot, it doesn't really take any educational background to get into real estate investing. A lot of people teach this as an actual business strategy of cloud the title. When they find another buyer, they're going to need you to release, and you tell them you want $5, $10, $20,000 for releasing. I see it day in and day out that investors that walked away from a deal a year ago are now saying they want money in order to release their cloud. And it's really holding homeowners' feet to the fire. But if you don't have money and you have to sell the property, to pull $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 out of your pocket to sue somebody, to not even get anything, but to simply get them to release a cloud on title of the property, a lot of people would rather pay them 10 grand on the closing statement, not wait the 6 months to a year that it's going to take to sue them, and kind of move on with their life. So it's not, that's really the worst case scenario, but I see that scenario happen once a month.
Oh, that's just when you describing that just makes my stomach drop out. I mean, that just seems like the most predatory thing I've ever heard of.
Absolutely.
It's hard. That's absolutely awful. I think, but it's another lesson. Don't sign anything until you get somebody who knows what the heck to look at. Is they're doing to look at that thing. I mean, just please. You know what I mean? It just.
And this is one of the basic differences. When you work with a realtor, they know to use the approved contract. In the approved Florida FAR contract, it specifically states that they cannot file notice in the public records regarding that document. But when you switch to a one page and it doesn't have anything disallowing the investor to do that, they are free to do that. And they do. And it's a basic difference, but if you're not educated in the actual real estate transaction and how it normally goes and the documents that are normally used, you would look at a one-page contract and you would never be able to think of, I need a clause in there that says this person cannot use this contract to cloud title in the public records. It's sad that it gets to that point. But, as with anything, if you don't look at the fine print of what you're signing, or you don't realize that the fine print is not there that you need, it can definitely come back to bite you.
Right. Okay. So I think the key lesson for people here is know what you're signing. Make sure it's the official Florida, as you described, the official, the normal
FAR bar. Yep.
FAR bar, yeah. And if it's one pager, you might want to go ask a lawyer.
Yeah.
So, which I would recommend doing anyway.
Absolutely. And honestly, by going out and getting an attorney, the amount that attorneys charge is normally able to be mitigated simply by their negotiation on the closing statement. So for a buyer representation, we charge $695. Most of the time, we are able to erase most of that charge in charges the other title company was charging, simply by getting in there and negotiating. So it's basically a wash to have an attorney representing you through every step of the process. It's terrible that people don't realize that. I think the thought of going to an attorney sounds expensive. We've been conditioned that it is, something only for well-off people, and it's really not the case. You can get quality representation for a very good price nowadays. There's a ton of attorneys out there, and it's the cost versus what can happen if you don't have that representation. It's huge.
Right, and there's also some, when you're cutting out, so the biggest chunk is the real estate commissions. If you're able to cut that out or cut out half of that, it's not a big deal. It's still a fraction of what it would have cost to do it that way, even if you do get representation. So it makes total sense.
Absolutely. I mean, to list a property on the MLS nowadays, you can do a flat fee listing, 6 months, $199. It's super simple. I renovate some houses. That is how I sell my properties. To have a realtor that basically just slaps a lot box on your property, because if it's a loan property, it's not worth it for them to continue driving out there. They're going to want to put a lot box on it. They're just going to give people the code, and you can do the same thing yourself for $100 to $200. Um, it's when the contract comes, it's easy to show the property, if you have any design skill at all to just make things look nice, just tidy up. You should get a market value offer for your property just by being on the MLS. The market's so hot, especially down here in South Florida, that, putting it out there, a couple pictures on there, nice description, and just clean up after yourself, make it not look like a pigsty, you're going to get market value offers. It's everything that happens once you get an offer on the property. And like I said, for $700 to have an attorney make sure that you don't get burned when you're saving tens of thousands of dollars in commission, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, and I think you might be onto something there. I think maybe there's a misconception out there that, oh, lawyer equals, $300 an hour, and they're going to run up a $5,000 tab. When in reality, I've heard of a lot of flat fees from attorneys, like you just described. It's like, hey, this is the flat fee. It's $500, $600, $700, whatever the number is, and they'll represent people. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely another takeaway for people is it's not. And I've actually talked to a few of real estate attorneys who have said, hey, this is the case, and it's not. They're not out there charging. They charge what the market is. Everything's a market, and that's what the market kind of dictates that the price of that is, the value of that is, and that's basically what it's going to be. And again, you're saving on the front end, so it makes all the sense in the world. And it's just one of those things that if you're going about trying to do this and you're not sure and you're not educated, best thing to do is to get educated, but also talk to experts. Just before. That's the key.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Education is really the biggest thing. Over here at Title Now, we do our best. I mean, we put on educational events for realtors all the time about the ins and outs of the contract. If you are buying a home and, you want to get more education, feel free to come. You're able to sit in one of our contract to closing classes with all the other realtors that we teach on a monthly basis. It's free of charge. We provide lunch. So it's definitely something that the resources are out there in order to help you protect yourself, in order to educate yourself. There's really no excuse for that. If you are taking on somebody else's job, you need to be educated on what that job actually is. So I understand, the allure of saving, 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever the case may be, by listing it yourself. But you need to have the knowledge behind there to really do yourself justice, because it's one thing to save the money, but if you are just going to give it back by being uneducated and taking wrong steps through the process, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You're not really saving anything.
Right. I totally agree on that. And I guess maybe just to wrap it up for us, the role of the title company, I've heard it described as like the neural network or the nerve center of a deal, sort of like the brain of the deal, if you will, the very central.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a little bit about what the actual role of a title company is and what, so people out there who have no idea what a title company does can kind of get a general overview of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, you definitely want to go with a title company that is attorney owned. Most of them are separated from a law firm and a title agency, just like we are. So a title company by itself is basically a disinterested third party that is neutral to the transaction to hold the funds and follow through with the contract as executed. So all the terms, we are obligated to basically align those. We put out a closing statement. We issue the documents that it specifically requires us to as per the contract, and we disperse all the money when everything is signed. When you engage an attorney-owned title company because the attorney's office has a relationship with the title company. The attorney's office will step in to help you along the way, and it's something that a regular title agency, when you get into a disagreement, they stand back, they put their hands in the air, and they go, we can't represent you. We're not an attorney. Whereas if you do have an attorney-owned title company, that attorney will step in. If it's a simple email or something, we do those things free of charge for our clients. If it gets, a little bit more intensive like that, the attorney can step in, start drafting demand letters, start overseeing the transaction for your behalf to make sure that it does run smoothly for you. So it's definitely beneficial to go to an attorney-owned title company, because if you get into a disagreement at a regular title company, you're going to have to go out and get an attorney, and then you end up paying the double fees and things like that. So it's not even worth it to not go to an attorney-owned title company.
When you say represent, are you representing the seller or are you representing the buyer?
So as a title company is a disinterested third party. So as a title company does not represent anybody. All right. When an attorney owns the title company, my partner to here is a real estate attorney. They have an interest in seeing the business continue for the title company, and if it's an agent that sent us the business or a homeowner that sent us the business, to make sure that that client is happy. So that the law firm part of it will step in and help that homeowner, that seller, that buyer, whoever is bringing us the business.
Okay. So it could be either.
It can be either. Correct.
Okay. That makes sense. I've been talking to, it's been interesting for me to talk to you guys because I'm being educated as I sit here, and I'm hearing from mostly the title companies. I think just about everyone I've talked to, has also been associated with an attorney, and they have described the benefits of going that route, which has been definitely helpful for me, and I'm sure everyone who's going to be watching this to understand sort of the difference. And the benefits of that. It seems like there's some there'll be some cost saving benefits there too. You're able to save on some various fees and stuff. So it seems like it's I'm sure it's prudent, and it's also probably maybe more cost effective to do that. Would you say as well that that's?
Yeah. Well, so when you're selling a property and down here in South Florida, Dade and Broward, the buyer picks the title company most of the time. So a buyer comes to your property. You as a seller don't want to pay fees to somebody else's title company. You actually retain your own counsel. And instead of paying the buyer's title company a fee to create your warranty deed, your bill of sale, your owner's affidavit, all of your seller documents, by retaining an attorney and paying the attorney to do those, you can actually retain counsel, and the fee from the buyer's title company goes away. So you're not paying double charges for representation. You're paying the buyer's title company to prepare your documents, and that charge varies anywhere from $450 to $1,200 depending on where the buyer decides to close their transaction. Or you pay your attorney. Like I said, we do $695 over here for buyer or seller representation, and then our law firm steps in. We prepare the warranty deed, the bill of sale, the owner's affidavit. But by retaining counsel, we take it a step further. We oversee the transaction for the seller. We'll review the contract when it comes in. So you get additional services, and you only pay one fee. So it saves you money on what you're having to pay at the buyer's title company, and you get additional services from the law firm in exchange for the business.
That makes total sense. Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really interesting model, and that's really kind of a cool. I'm also understanding all these innovations that are, I consider that to be sort of an innovative thing. Do you know the history behind that? How long has that been a thing to have the lawyer the lawyer title company combo? Is that a fairly new thing, or has that been around a long time?
No, I think the way that it started out was attorneys were the only people that could do real estate closings. As some states, it's still that way. Some states are attorney only. Florida is one of the states that does have a title agent license, where an individual who is not an attorney can get licensed as a Florida title agent, and then you can open up a title agency. But there's a few states. I think Georgia is one of them that's attorney only. I think New York was one of them that's attorney only. But it's a relatively new thing. I don't know exactly when it switched over, and Florida had the opportunity to allow individuals to get licensed as title agents. But I think it's great. I think it opens up the business, and it's natural for a title company and attorney to get close together, because obviously when you're in the middle of so many transactions, you're either referring the business on a constant basis to an attorney. You have an attorney that actually owns the title company because the attorney gets real estate law, so they are looking for someplace to direct their title work, and just vice versa. So a title company will get business from realtors, and they'll have an issue pop up and they'll refer it to an attorney, or an attorney gets, let's say, somebody who's looking to buy a house, they go to the attorney first, and then the attorney refers it to the title company. So I think it's natural that there's some relationship there, whether there's an ownership interest or simply a referral relationship. When you're doing transactions that require legal documents, it's natural to bring an attorney somewhere in the loop.
That makes total sense. So, hey, I just want to thank you for your time this morning to help us sort of be educated on the process and how people can sort of avoid these pitfalls. You've presented a very compelling potential pitfall we haven't heard yet, which is the investor angle. So I really appreciate that. If people want to get in touch with you and want to contact you for your services, can you just let us know like the areas you service, website, and how people kind of get in touch?
Absolutely. So we service the whole state of Florida. We have 5 offices throughout South Florida, starting in Palm Beach Gardens down, but we do send mobile closings across the state. We have mobile closers across the country. We use a third-party service. So if you're in another state selling or refinancing a property here in Florida, we don't even need you to come down here. We can handle the whole transaction remotely with you. My website is www.titlenowfl.com. And you can go ahead and reach me on my phone at 954-609-3275. I'll be more than happy to answer any other questions and help out in any way I can.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate your time this morning, and we've all been now educated more as a result. So that's been very helpful for us.
Awesome. I really appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully we can do it again soon, Ryan.
Sure. I hope so, too. Take care, Michael.
Talk to you soon.